Hey, welcome everybody to another episode of the Superpower Quest. And today I get to sit with my friend Joshua Aranda, who is the CEO of Mission Matters Group, and just a deep thinker and a force and a catalyst in our community. So welcome to the show, Joshua.
Thank you so much.
It's good to see you today, man. So I asked you what's one thing you would want people to know about you, and it's that you try to be the most intentional version of yourself specific to each role that you have. Can you tell us a little bit more about that intentionality?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like cliche, but my dad and my grandpa used to say like, if anything's worth doing, it's worth doing well.
Yeah,
And so I do try to think about that, and I get the cool privilege of having some different roles in my life, right? I get to be a husband, a dad, a business owner, and leader. And so, to the degree at which I can be intentional in each one of those roles and honor that role, that's where I get a lot of fulfillment. That's what I feel my calling is. And so, my hope is to honor that and just do the work necessary.
so what would you say is the correlation between being intentional in a role and honoring the role?
Um, yeah, that's a really great distinction. Um, I think honoring also has to take into consideration the expectations of the other party,
Yes.
meaning my wife, she could want a fun, energetic, and bold husband,
Yeah.
and there's an expectation there. So my role is to not only fulfill that, but also, you know, be able to lean into the other aspects of being a good spouse.
Yeah.
And so I think intentional and honoring is taking, looking at both sides of those and saying, what is my responsibility for the role? But then how do I also honor those expectations of the seat that I currently occupy and try to
Yeah.
marry those two things together?
Well, that's what I've learned from you as I've watched. So that the idea of intentionality, um, I can tell by your very presence when I've heard you speak, and then even what I've seen of you on LinkedIn and social media, you really are a force to draw other people towards intentionality, and then even I think a similar concept is alignment,
Hmm.
right? And so being intentional means I say what it means to me, and you can say what it means to you. What it means to me is um, taking the time and effort and energy to do your best, um, and not just let life pass you by, or not to just kind of get sucked into mediocrity. Is
Yep.
that how you would define it?
Yeah, that's great, man. I think that's an awesome definition. I somebody used this word in a dialogue with me the other day, and I've been obsessed with the word ever since. Um, but they used a word. They're like, we need to be surgical with this communication.
Mm,
And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so good. I hadn't seen it used in that expression.
yeah.
So I'm like, what makes something like surgical? Like there's precision to it.
Mm,
And then I started thinking about like, well, why do I like precision?
mm-hmm.
And not precision in like a robotic or mechanical way, but like once this all of a sudden like I can do something with great intention and precision.
Yeah.
And so I think everything that you just said, it's like bringing like the heartfelt nature into precise action.
Yeah.
And so we know why our hand moves a certain way to achieve a certain objective, but we can bring all types of heart and emotion and purpose in behind it as well, that I find just like fascinating.
Yeah. So a great illustration of that is that post you did about you were going on a mountain hike in the snow. I can't remember. It was you were going with a group, and you didn't know each other,
Yeah.
and you didn't want to assume that everybody knew what they should know about safety. So could you talk about that as a good example of
Oh
it?
yeah. So there's this guy Eric, most awesome human being, but he invited me to do go backcountry skiing with some people, and I didn't know anybody else that was going to be at the group, and so I had had one backcountry experience that was pretty intense, and so it gave me just like the um, reason for being intentional with one, making sure everybody's operating from the same lens and rules and guidelines. But, you know, what I was exposed to by Eric and his friend were just like an incredible amount of intentionality to make sure that, one, we talked about the stuff that would get in the way from an ego standpoint. Like,
Yes.
hey, this isn't about like who's macho and who can do as many routes and all that stuff. Like the goal is to be safe and come home and have a great time with fellowship and all that stuff and seeing beauty. And so I just appreciated how intentional they were, and like, let's all get a common vernacular. Let's make
Yeah.
sure we understand everybody's baseline experience and expertise, and like
Yep.
make sure we're aligned on goals and objective for the day. And if we have any misalignment there, it's like the breeding ground for disaster in the backcountry.
Yeah.
So,
Right. You said there, don't assume. Right.
yeah,
Like we like to assume that people know what we know, and then we assume alignment, and then when the crap hits the fan, it's like we're not actually aligned,
yeah,
and we never got a chance to even find out.
yeah. Oh man, it's crazy. Well, I mean, and the crazy thing is, like, that can happen in a moment with me and my son, or my
Yes.
daughter, or my other,
Yes.
like, or me and my spouse. Like, we make all these assumptions, and those things that go unvalidated, and how we keep expectations of each other, or unspoken expectations. Like, it doesn't prop anybody up for the greatest amount of success.
No. And I know why we do it too, because I've been thinking about this. Actually, I took that to heart, man. Like that conversation you and I had, and then that post actually, and I was realizing there are moments with my wife where I'm just not clear, and it's because I don't want to create conflict in that moment, or I'm afraid of something, right?
Mhm.
And so it's easier. It seems on the front end easier
Yeah.
to not have the harder conversation, because an alignment conversation can be a harder conversation because it's like, okay, you might perceive me a certain way because I'm saying, no, we're not going to assume. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about the thing. We're going to talk it all the way through. Right? We're going to get to clarity. That can be off-putting to some people. Like, well, what are you trying to, you acting like
Yeah.
I don't know. You think I don't know. You know what I mean? And so we're
Yeah.
afraid. I think that's the biggest reason we don't pursue. And there's a comfort, a perceived comfort
Totally, man.
in fuzzy non-clarity
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, and it's completely a fallacy,
Yeah.
because it's like it's temporary safety, because once there's contention, or like the maybe the foundation of your fallacy in which it was built, once that's exposed, things start to crumble, and so we trade off long-term stability and maybe hopefully more hopefulness or joy or peace for a short-term, you know, false sense of security.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So
And
we,
maybe that's not the case for all situations,
we
but unfortunately, when you're talking, I feel like you're speaking right to my heart, dude. So thank you for unpacking that.
yeah, I don't like it. I don't like, right, like I'm a connector. I don't like conflict. Really, I can do conflict. I can actually do conflict extremely well. But to get me to go
Can
into it can be tough, right?
I ask you a question?
Yeah,
Are there types of conflict that are easier for you to enter into than others?
that is a good question. Relational conflict is hard for me. So
Mm,
if the stakes are somebody's got there's potential that somebody could be mad at me, that's hard for me to voluntarily enter
mm,
into. And I will, and I do, and I can't. I've learned
yeah.
to. I mean, I was a pastor for 10 years. I had to learn
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
But they used to send me into the gnarliest situations when I was a pastor, man.
I believe it.
But it was because I was actually really good at it.
Yeah.
But it
It's
just,
probably
but
because you like seem like someone that assumes the best in everybody. Like you like feel uplifted by you, so it's like, okay, we can break down some walls and get to the meaty stuff here.
thanks, man. Yes, people do feel safe, and that is an asset, right? Nobody thinks I'm out to get them in
Hmm.
general, unless things have gone really south, which
Yeah.
can happen.
Yep.
But, but yeah, man. So we've gone pretty deep. I'm interested in where the source of that intentionality is. Like, were you born that way? Were there particular things that happened in your life to kind of make you realize that you needed to press into this maybe sometimes uncomfortable space of intentionality? Tell me the story of that.
Yeah. Someone asked me this the other day too, and I don't have like I can't like pinpoint it, but I remember just like feeling growing up that, like, let's say there was conflict between like two siblings or something,
Yeah.
or my dad and one of my brothers, like you name it, or like friends. I always felt this like need to like go in and be like a peacemaker and like
Yeah.
try to see both sides. And I think like the way that I explain it now is like holding tension of like maybe different perspectives and like finding the common ground.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there's like vivid moments where I remember going to talk to my brother in the basement while my dad was up. Like, I can feel like walking down the stairs and stuff still, just this like palpable moment, you know, when I'm like 8 or something, some random age. And so I think like I've always had this, and I don't know where it comes from or whatever, but like this desire to like hold tension. This could be because I was like the youngest and I thought like everybody would like me if I could hold the tension and be like a peacekeeper or something.
Yeah.
But I feel like as I've gotten older and older, I've stepped out of a, how would you say, um, probably more of a form of being accepted
Hmm.
as opposed to, oh, this is actually a gift of mine to hold tension and help people navigate through it.
Yes.
And so I think I'm trying to lean into that more and more and explore it in my own, my own internal terrain, like my spirituality, my mentality, like, so I think I try to have it manifested in my consulting and coaching work, and I try to apply the same things internally in myself. But I think it goes back. It's probably having a healthier relationship with something that was a gift, but could be used more from a like insecure posture, if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. And the more that I'm digging in with people about their superpower, we're coming across this moment where folks are like, well, this might be my superpower, but I did it. I used to do it for this unhealthy reason, or this unhealthy circumstance is what kind of gave rise to it. So I don't really know if it is my superpower. I don't know. But then what we find is, no, there was, just like you said, yes, maybe you were doing it for validation, you were doing it for acceptance because you were good at it,
Mm-hmm.
but that didn't change the fact that you were good at it,
Yeah, yeah,
right? There was
yeah,
something underneath that.
yeah. I think
Um,
I might have mentioned this to you in just a couple conversations ago, but one of the best advice that I've ever gotten, and it came from my dad, and it was 2016. I had just moved up to Portland, Oregon, and my dad was having like one-on-ones with everybody in the company. So like me and my dad, we were he started, and I was kind of a co-founder of it. And anyways, he told me, he's like, "Hey, you need to basically get comfortable with like giving hard feedback and like saying the hard thing." So like I could sit with people in tension and like understand their story and like maybe validate them or whatever. But I don't think I completed my ability to sit with people in pain or tension or frustration or hope or whatever until my dad gave me that, where I'm like,
yes.
oh, I'm saying the soft thing and the easy thing. I need to lean in, and I can love people way more if I can have both sides of that. So it was like, anyways, so that was very formative in helping to get better at what was like a skill set, but not necessarily a superpower yet. But I think as I had some refining from different influences in my life, I've been able to make it into, it's formed into a superpower.
That's so dope, man. What did your dad see that made him say that to you at that time? What do you think he saw?
Yeah, I didn't say the hard thing in feedback, whether it was with clients or teammates. I'm like a good cheerleader,
Yeah.
and I can understand how people got to a bad decision,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't necessarily push them to get better and refine as much as they could. Like we don't need a bunch of people saying like, "Oh, you should have done this or should have done that."
Right.
But I was overlooking an aspect of somebody's development and my own development by not saying the hard thing.
Yeah.
And so that's the same is true in marriage or with my kids or whatever or with my dad. Probably unfortunately he's like, damn, I shouldn't have given that feedback because he's
Paid
gotten
for it. Paid for it, bro.
yeah, he paid for it in spirits. And we have a call every Friday morning, me, my dad, and my brothers, and there'll be times where I'm like, "Do you want feedback?" He's like, "It doesn't matter what I say because you're gonna give it to me anyways." But it's in love and in jest because he knows that it's coming from a place of care and concern and love. But I'm so grateful that my dad gives me the ability to speak into
Yeah.
parts of his life. So, anyways, full
No,
circle.
that's actually. I want to sit there for a second. You're the type of dude that has a call with your dad and your brothers. You say every week?
Yeah, for the last 4 years, every Friday. Well, the first years it was like random, like sometimes Friday afternoons. But
Yeah.
for probably the last 3 years, every Friday at 4:30 Mountain Time, we get up and have a call, and it usually lasts anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Tell me about your family. that's not common. That's not common at all. So yeah,
Yeah.
what led to that, and what is it?
Yeah, great question. So, the impetus of it was so me, my dad, and my brother Jeremy. I have another brother, Jared. We all worked in MMG and led Mission Matters Group.
Okay.
2019, we had some separation, and all of us did different things. Well, fast forward to April of 2020. So this is a month after they declared the pandemic. My grandpa had passed away like February 28th or something of 2020. My brother Jeremy got exposed to this thing called Exodus 90, which was like spiritual formation and going through some series of exercises and daily check-ins and stuff. And so it was a 90-day thing. So my brother Jeremy texts me, Jared, or me and my brothers and dad, and they're like, "Hey, would you guys be interested in doing this to honor Grandpa?" And so we're like, "Yeah, sure." And so at the time, it wasn't like the right commitment for my brother Jared. And so he's like, "I'm interested in this, but like this is a
Yep.
pretty crazy season right now." So, anyways, we started meeting April of 2020 once a week, and then my brother Jared joined the following year, and then the next year my brother-in-law joined as well. And it's been huge, man. Like I think all of us have a different faith walk, if you will,
Yep.
but that's been pretty. You know, I realize that one, that is unique, and then two, the other thing that is unique in my situation that I'm so grateful for is that like not everybody can say that they worked with their dad and brother or family
Yep.
and had a separation and then had stronger relationships on the flip side. I can say that, and
Yeah.
I attribute a massive amount to it to this weekly call.
Yep.
And I think that also has stimulated how much the deep seated conviction around just intentional rhythms in our life and how important they are. Because my life is the trajectory of it is completely different because of this call, but more so important, like intentionality towards important rhythms that align us with other human beings that help us build deep seated relationships that we can build on top of as we move forward. Um, so that's how we came to have this call. And it's cool now that my oldest brother's boys are getting into, into older ages. It's like, in the next couple of years, I'm assuming they're going to join. And it's a very exposing area. So like, I'm so proud of my dad because like he's led us into other areas of our life that are like, damn, that's pretty bold.
Yeah.
And same thing. So we have a reciprocal nature with all this stuff. So it's super, super special.
Dude, that's so powerful, man. I have a version of that with my brother-in-law and my father-in-law. We actually, but it's we're getting back to a once a month cadence. We've been off for a long time, but we were on for years,
It's awesome.
um, and it's powerful, man, to be able to be vulnerable and share
Yeah.
with the men in your life that
Yep.
can help prop you up.
Yep.
You remind me of Kobe Bryant. So,
Man, nobody's ever said that.
dude,
Super
dude.
good.
So I think if Kobe Bryant would have taken my superpower quest quiz, I think he would have said he was probably an organizer achiever.
Hmm.
And he had this belief in rhythms. This incredible, like part of what made him great. They talk about how he didn't have like the natural gifting of some of the greats, but he had this crazy work ethic where he would work his system to the point where he outworked anybody else in his system,
Hmm.
right? And so
Yep.
he
Yep.
had this sense for, I think, intentionality. I bet you would have said one of his key words of his success was intentionality. But I see that in you, right? Like you're getting crazy results in your life, you're getting cool results in your life, but it has to do with the fact that you've unlocked the power of intentional rhythms and cadences.
Hmm.
And you're continuing to push into that. So I'm just noting what I see. Like there's something there because you said in my superpower quest test that your core drive is harmony. So right, people, relationships, connections first.
Hmm.
But then underneath that, you're dreamer, organizer. So big picture, visionary. But organizer is that person that understands the importance of systematic action and planning. and structure.
Hmm.
Um, and so then that kind of makes sense in even what you've been describing to me, um, that ability.
That's yeah. No, I appreciate it. I can't. It's funny because I don't identify with the word organizer.
Yeah.
Like there's some areas in my life that I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so disheveled. Like this
Right.
is
Right.
ridiculous. But then there are some conceptual areas that I feel very tidy and
Yep.
I am very clear and systematic.
Yep.
So like it's funny where I can have one area of my life in the conceptual or theoretical or cerebral realm,
Yeah.
whereas like my physical life can be different. Like I
Yep.
literally come downstairs and I work in a basement that's like, half finished. So this backdrop is in my basement and it looks nice, but it's like I turn the camera a little
Yeah.
bit. It's like, oh, I still got sleeping bags over here
Yep.
from 2 weeks ago when I went
Yeah.
camping. But
Yeah. I am noticing that with that gift, that it can manifest different areas super strong and then other areas not so strong, but doesn't change the fact that there's something there. There's something about the way your brain works that gravitates towards system and cadence and structure. Um, so that's a cool superpower. So let me go here in our last call. Part of what you said about your calling was to 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 walk with people through into and through the hardest thing they've ever done, and also to face the hardest things in your own life in order to be able to do that with other people. That you can't really do that with other people unless you do that for
definitely,
yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about that calling?
yeah, um, yeah. One caveat in that, like, I do feel like whether it's the hardest thing. Well, you just used a great example that I think is like rhythmic of humans as well, where like we might be consistent in a rhythm for a while, like you, your brother-in-law, and your father-in-law, and then you fall off the pattern for a little bit, and there's static friction to get that thing going back again. But
Yeah,
once you get it going, there's kinetic friction, and then hopefully
yeah,
there's just great momentum. And so I do think that like I just like sitting with people in hard things, whether it's the hardest thing that
yeah,
they've ever done. Only
yeah.
they can answer that, right?
Right.
So for whatever reason, it felt important to
That is
clarify.
important. That is
Um,
important. Yeah.
so yeah, I think if I were to like look back, and I've always had this like weird desire to like invite a handful of people to like a physical challenge that I could see that I know that they could do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so for instance, like it was 20 2019 Christmas. Um my sister who I work with, and so I'm very close with her. I see her, the beauty of her, I see her gifts, I see her mindset. So we all exchange, or everybody chooses one name who they get to give a gift for. So I picked Christy for Christmas, and so I bought her a registration to a 50K, and it was up in Oregon. It was super close to Mount Hood, and I wrote her this note like she's got the right kind of crazy that I know she could do this, like with like zero training. Not saying that that's the right approach, but like I know physically and mentally she would figure out how to get it done. And there's some people that you come across that you know that they could do that. And it's not that other people aren't capable of it, but there would have to be a bigger buildup.
Yep.
And there's like a kindling wood. And that ultra would have been kindling wood for just an explosion of like realization about that one human being. So
Yeah.
I bought her this registration and I sent it to her. And COVID hit. We didn't do the race,
Yeah.
yada, yada, yada. But she told me, she's like, that was a gift in and of itself because you thought that I was capable of something that I didn't think I was capable of. And that was like, well, that's totally like, how do you not know this about you? Like, I want to and so, but once you actually do the thing that you saw that they were capable of, and they see the thing that they didn't think that they were capable of, and we marry those viewpoints up together, just like it'll just blow your mind, and people will start to realize that they're capable of way more. And so everything is a stepping stone in our existence, essentially. Like I can use this one experience, whether it was hard or easy, to fuel future encounters of the next moment. And so I think to the degree at which, like, I think I was wired for that.
Yeah.
But being able to sit with people in that and navigate it, you know, you see what they're capable of, which is just like it's a gift for me and hopefully a gift for them.
Well, it is. I mean, you are the gift. The give that often, and I keep seeing this, and I say this a lot. I'm seeing that the gift that people have to give, their best gift that they have to give, is the gift that they received,
Hmm.
right? And so there's a gift you received at some point where you felt like I can do more than I thought I was capable of, right? I can press out of this realm of mediocrity into this realm of excellence that maybe I never thought I could. Now I don't know when that happened for you. I'm interested in knowing when that happened for you, but that's you're in order to be able to give that gift, you have to have it given to you at some point.
Hmm.
So let's go there. Was there a moment where you realized like I can do more than I thought?
Yeah. A couple moments stand out, and my wife and I did a 50 miler together in 2016 in the Black Hills, and it was really, really hard. Probably one of the hardest things that I've ever done. And we got to do it together. And that kind of like got my wheels turning, like, huh, I wonder what else is out there. And I wouldn't say that that is the most formative, but we had this cool approach where like we're like 25 miles in. It's hotter than anything. I
Yeah,
think half of the field ended up dropping out from this race. And anyways, like we we didn't really complain. Like it was an unspoken
yeah,
rule. Like we never talked about it. And most of the things that we said to each other were like, I love you. And my wife started off. So we're like, you know, we're kind of grunting and like running and everything. And Laura was like, hey, I love you. And I would like respond back a little bit later. And like that all of a sudden became like the mantra. And it was like mile 45. And we had this bear of a climb. And I had been like leading most of the way on this like single track course. And then all of a sudden, she just like freaking beasted it and like got in front and just like hammered up this hill like a freaking beast. And I was just like so like amazing, right? And so I didn't think that I was like leading. I was just like setting the pace or whatever. But then she led, man. She led us up that hill and she basically pulled me up, even though there was no physical contact whatsoever. But like that was cool to see my wife bring my ability to like do that big hill. So that was like neat. Like no physical touch, no words, example, grind it out. Well, this picture behind me is Mount Hood, and I tell people it's the first mountain that I fell in love with. Well, basically 6 months later, me, my brother, and my wife climbed this mountain, and it's June 9th of 2016, 2 days before our anniversary. And anyways, we go to summit this thing, and we're on this cool feature called the Hog's Back, and we like are looking up, and my brother's like, "Man, there's a little like funky buildup or whatever, but it seems like it's gonna die down." So, anyways, we like climb through this pretty technical ice feature, not super long, not super difficult, but we get to the summit. Me and my brother takes a picture of me and my wife. I come down and I take a picture of my brother and my wife up at the summit. And in between those two pictures, like crazy how much the weather changed. Like we're talking about like 3 minutes. So we get stuck in top of this mountain, like friggin' whiteout conditions, like 20 feet of visibility, 60-mile-an-hour winds, the scariest thing that I've ever encountered in my entire life.
yeah,
So both my wife and I are not experienced like ice climbers, and so we feel like we don't feel comfortable climbing down this technical ice route that we climbed up. So we have to like traverse this like narrow like snow bridge or whatever that like consequences on both sides, and then we get to the top of this feature called Old Shoots, and the three of us have this like moment together where it's like, you know, one single tear dropping. We're all trying to keep it together. It's super palpable, like how like extreme the situation feels. And we're like, we all say like, I love you. And then we like came up with a strategy on how to get down, which is, I feel like a different story, but we got down. And I will say that moment catapulted like that was a powder keg of like formation.
yeah.
And like we got down safe. We encountered this other party where like this dude fell from where we climbed, bashed his head open. There was blood everywhere. Like so we learned so many things in this moment, yeah, it's a crazy. I feel like we could take up like 2 hours just
Yeah.
talking about this thing, all the things that I learned from it.
Yeah.
But anyways, we made decisions as a team. We worked through it. We brought good things out from each other. We laid down things that were not productive that we were bringing to the table. And it was just cool to see that we were able to navigate a very, very intense moment and get out on the other side. And the next morning, when we all like woke up, I mean, we just like sat there and like we wept, like, like just like moments where we're just like so grateful to be alive. But it made it so sweet going through that,
Yeah.
like it made that next, and not that we should put ourselves in risky,
Right.
dangerous situations where our life is in jeopardy,
Right.
but it was so palpable that we can go through hard things and realize that which we have in this very moment is beautiful and precious and deserves all of our attention and love. And it's a shame
Yeah.
that like I have to
Yeah.
go through some of these things to like remember something that I should already know. But every time I come back from something like that, my edges are a little bit smoother. I
Yeah.
feel more purpose. I show up better as a husband, as a dad, as a business owner, as a leader, as a coach, as a consultant. And they are all stories that nobody can take away, but I can give it and I can pour it and I can contextualize it to whoever I'm in front of. And hopefully that'll serve their journey in one way, shape, or form.
And so one thing I drew out of you from our last conversation, it's not only that you don't fear that place anymore. There's something about that place that you like.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's like a deep there's a posture or like a comfort that I find there that it's like how do I even say it? Well, yeah, short answer, yes. Do you want me to explain why I like
Yes,
it?
I do. I mean,
Uh,
yes.
I'll give like a well, I'll give a backstory that I think is germane to this.
Yeah.
I have a 1994 Jeep Wrangler that I had in high school. It had no air conditioning, and if you're familiar with St. Louis summers, they're like muggy, super humid, all that stuff. So when I go back to St. Louis summers, I find great nostalgia. Like it like is comforting to me, even though it can be oppressive. Not as bad as some other parts of the
Yeah.
country or whatever. But I think in like when I in like college and like later on and when I left and I came back, I recognized this experience that like, oh, this sucked. And a lot of people would have complained or whatever, but I found it to be conditioning to show up better and appreciate things in
Yes.
a weird way. So I feel
Yeah.
like I've taken that forward where it's like, oh, I can recognize the personal growth coming out of these things on the other side. So for instance, like in most of these races when I do them, like so for instance in 2022, I did my first 100K, and I always like said that races where I go to like fight my demons, where it's
Yeah.
like inevitably like you'd go out to like you cross a threshold, maybe your previous distance was 50 miles or whatever, and then you'd get into this uncharted territory, and I'll speak for myself, like I'd kind of like have a freak out moment, like I've never been here before, what am I gonna do? And then all the demons start showing up like you're a piece of shit, you're no good, you're weak, you can't do this,
Yeah.
you're the reason why your business almost failed, like all these things that just like swirl up that like you can either stay in that place or you can work through them. And so when you're actually moving, putting one foot in front of the next and having to work through pain, discomfort, emotional baggage, whatever, it's just like that was my battleground, and that's where I found great comfort to go and fight them because they would manifest there. I had built up enough strength and reserves that those demons typically only showed up when I got into a physically depleted area or
Yeah.
state. And so once I got there, I knew they were going to come full force. And so I had to figure out what my new armor or my new weapons were going to be to battle those things. Not that I don't have my demons, because I still do, and I don't even know some of them. But as I've gotten into further and further distances, I've found that that moment is extended to when I experience that, and the amount of joy that I have throughout them are way greater.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those areas where I've become one better at keeping the demons at bay, not to like not resolve them or work through them,
Yeah.
but rather saying like, it's not as big of a force anymore. So I got to figure out how do I get to them so I can fight them. But then I've also been comfortable with the discomfort. Like, it's okay. I know these things are going to pop up. So I don't need to have the fear of them popping up because I know they're going to pop up. At
Right.
which point I can settle into my skin a little bit more and just embrace it for when it comes. Not that I'm not ready, but that I can embrace it and be ready for it, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, man. It almost sounds like there's a purification. There's three words I wrote down: purified, clarified, distilled. Right? Like that you find something in that space that clarifies you, purifies you, and then you can come out.
Yeah.
The essence of who you are is more true to who you are on the other side of that.
Yeah. Oh man, I think that's spot on. Yeah, these are purely refining experiences
Yeah.
so that like I can live into the best and fullest version of myself or most intentional version of myself.
You use suffering to refine yourself.
Yes. I have a I have a great appreciation, gratitude, and friendship with suffering.
Yeah. That now that's going to sound really foreign to a lot of people to hear that. Even though I believe it is true. I think we all have experienced to some degree that suffering refines us. Um, I think being a person who's not just unafraid, but actually is so comfortable with suffering and with the predictability of what will come after, that's the part that's rare,
Hmm.
right? Like that understanding, like I'm going to go into it, right? Like I'm going to go, I'm actually going to, you're the one that signed up for this, whatever race you did, the Arizona Monster, right? Like nobody signed you up. You signed yourself up
Yeah. Yeah.
for suffering.
Yeah. It was a guarantee.
For this because this outcome is so precious to you.
That is yeah, that's definitely true. I can't say that I'm like, how would I say, um well, kind of going back to what you were saying with like marriage and everything, like leaning
Mhm.
into interpersonal conflict might be a little uncomfortable. I think it's the same thing with
Yeah,
this, where I'm not 100% like I want to, but I don't want to.
sure,
It's I
sure.
know what's on the other side, and so I'm like, I love you suffering, but dang, I don't like. Do we have to do this?
Yeah,
So yeah.
right. Of course, right? Because that's, I mean, yeah, you're also a human being with very human feelings and thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but sometimes, sometimes I would say it's a remarkable thing and a beautiful thing that you've transcended some of that, right? Like you've transcended some of the things that, right? Like you do have this kind of desire to not live a mediocre life.
Yep.
You don't want to live a mediocre life, and you don't want
That's
other
probably
people
my
to live.
biggest fear, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. You don't want, and you won't, right? Like you will not live a mediocre life. You're not built to live a mediocre life, so you won't. So I understand the fear, but also
Mm.
you're not going to do that. That's not what you're built to do.
Yeah.
Um, but but I think there's a lot that people can learn from you and also learn with you. I know that you actually help people individually. I'm sure every aspect of what you do, you're helping people find the gold treasure that only comes in the clarification and the purification and the excellence, the distilled quality, right? That only comes at the other end of
Yeah.
hardship.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
And I have no doubt you can do it extremely well.
I appreciate that. Well, I hope I do. Otherwise, I wouldn't be wouldn't be in business for a very very long time.
So what did you see? Your most recent race was the Arizona Monster.
Yep.
And again, these are all in the category of ultra marathon or I don't know what the wording is, but can you tell a little bit about the context and then why you chose to sign up?
Yeah. So yeah, this race was put on. It was the inaugural race, so this hadn't been done before. And there's this category of ultra marathons like that are the 200 plus range miles, and so this one was 305 miles. So they call it the Arizona Monster 300. And we basically went on the Arizona Trail for the majority of the time. I think 80% of the trail was on the Arizona Trail. And so we started, just east of Phoenix in a town called Superior. And then we went south to, I think, pretty much the southernmost terminus of the Arizona Trail, which is in Patagonia, Arizona. We're like right on the border.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, it was a little over a month ago now, which is just like crazy, crazy to think about. But yeah, it took me 5 days and 23 hours to complete it. And it was just like, I have like so much gratitude for the event. And I just got to see like literally some of the most beautiful things like in humanity. Like, I got to run probably 200 plus miles with this lady who was from Brazil, but she's living in Florida. And I learned so much from her. Like, she's very accomplished ultra runner
Yeah.
in the like 200 plus,
Yeah.
and just a gem of a human being. And just got to learn a ton from her. But like, everybody is working their tail off. They're like trying to finish. They're working through their own demons. Everybody's got a story, and it's just like the most beautiful example of like grit, perseverance, humanity, humility, just like internal battle. Like, amazing, dude.
So is the goal like you just you do you pack in sleeping bag? Is there a sleeping bag? You just sleep like how do you
Yeah, great
sleep?
question. So there was 19 aid stations, and they were all, anywhere for, I think the first one was the closest one, and that was like 6 miles, but everything else was like 14 to 22-ish miles apart from each other. So you had to carry an emergency bivy sack, which is just like a little emergency sleeping bag that's really lightweight. It's almost like the blankets that like
Yeah.
firefighters put
Yeah.
around you to keep your heat in. Um, and then some of the aid stations were designated as sleep stations, and so they had cots there. And then my parents were my pit crew, so there was 8 aid stations that my parents could be at, and I built a little, platform bed in the back of the truck that I could sleep on, or they could sleep on when they were
Yeah.
chasing me around Arizona. Um, but yeah, so I would come into aid stations, and I learned this from this lady that I was running with. Her name was Simone, and she was, yeah, again, just awesome. But she's like, we won't sleep more than like 2 hours, like get an hour and a half nap, and then we'll refuel and all that. So the entire like 6 days, I slept about 9.5 hours over those 6 days. I
What?
know, it blew my mind, dude. And because we would get into these aid stations, and like sometimes I'd take like a 20-minute nap, sometimes it'd be like an hour nap or an hour and a half. But like, we wouldn't want to sleep too much beyond like deep sleep, body restorative sleep stage, and get into some of the other sleep stages, because like it would mess with us in a different way. So basically, we would like sleep enough for our body to repair, and then we'd start moving again. And it was the most bizarre experience ever to like know what your body's capable of on that little of sleep. And you just like, I felt like I just became more an intentional animal, but like I was able to just keep moving, across the Arizona desert, the Sonoran desert. It was like just absolutely bizarre. So yeah, there were sleep stations. I slept in a lot of chairs. I took a few naps just on the ground and in a bivy sack. I had never done a bivy before, and so it was cool just sleeping under the stars at 2 o'clock in the morning for 15 minutes and like falling asleep immediately, and then getting back up and start running.
Dude, that's wild. And now is the rule like you can't walk? Is there
Uh,
is that
oh no, there's so much walking. But
okay,
I think
good.
that's what's the misnomer for some of these
Okay.
ultras is like people are
Okay.
like, how do you run for 300 miles? Like, well, simple answer is you don't. You walk a lot, you hike a lot, you
Yeah.
feel like you're crawling a lot. So I think that's it, like anybody thinking about an ultra marathon, it's like anything beyond 26.2 miles is considered an ultra marathon. And then even if you walk 27 miles over a
Mhm.
day consecutive, like you did an ultra marathon. And I
Yeah.
think that's what like I love seeing those light bulbs turn out on for people. Like, throw time and all that stuff like out of the like, if we're thinking about life in the long game, ultra marathons are a beautiful example of it. You're going to go up and down, you're going to be on trail, sometimes it's rocky, sometimes it's technical, but just keep on moving, and you will cover more ground than you ever thought possible.
Dude,
And
that's
it's just like a
amazing.
beautiful example of life.
I am feeling deeply inspired right now. Um,
Well, you let me know when you want to sign up for something.
oh, bro. Uh, yeah. Yeah, man. I would love to do something like that with my wife. Um, she's my wife's a queen lion, man. Like she is. Anyway, another time.
Yep.
Um, when did your demons come out?
Um, so it's interesting because I don't feel like they fully manifested until maybe the second to last night. I was in a really, really good headspace, even when I encountered them. But I wrote this I wrote this letter to myself. Well, the backstory is
The poem
my
is so dope.
buddy. What's that?
The poem is so dope, man.
My buddy texted me when the race came out. He's like, "Hey, have you seen this yet?" I was like, "No, this looks epic." I was like, "Are you wanting to do it? Like, do you want to do it together?" And he's like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "This is all just in a quick exchange." I was like, "If you do it, I'll do it." And so I didn't really think too much of it, but like it was intriguing, all that good stuff. So he's like, "All right, I'll do it." So, anyways, you fast forward, a couple months when registration opens, and we both sign up for it. Well, he had a bunch of stuff going on and happen, and so he had to back out like a month beforehand. And so when that happened, I I was like, should I back out? Like,
Yeah,
I went through a bunch of mental gymnastics that you could imagine. But then I was like, no, I want to do this. I signed up for this, but I got to understand why I want to
yeah,
do this.
yeah,
So a month of processing, and then the 4 days leading up to it, I start writing myself this letter, which is basically like the culmination of why I'm doing this and the purpose of it. And so the letter was called Remember, and so I just wrote it
mhm,
to myself, as to all the different reasons, what I was trying to hope for and experience in there. Well, anyways, I had this grand idea of people that I care about reading it to me at aid stations.
yeah,
Well, I didn't always have service, so this turned into, um, my parents got recordings of my siblings and one of my cousins and my wife Laura reading it and recording it, which was like the best thing that could have happened to me.
wow,
So I have 8 of these recordings of this 6 minute long letter as they're reading it to me. And dude, in the middle of the night when it was the hardest, these I would just play these things on repeat, man. And so it'd be 2 o'clock in the morning, and we're going through gnarly terrain and everything. And I just play it, for my wife over and over again, or my brother, or my cousin, or you name it. And really, I'd say that the second to last night is really where, I felt like I shed weight, and I'm like going, and every step that I'm taking, I'm just like, my ankles are killing me, my feet are just like dying, like I could not stop thinking about those, and I could feel myself like just getting annoyed and frustrated with my current state.
yeah,
I was like, okay, separate yourself from this, like think about this. What are we doing here? And so, like, in the remember, or in the note to myself, I talk about being sanded down by the desert. I talk about carrying the burdens of others. And, I painted these pictures of people and things that I think about as to why I need to do these things, whether it's, a parent who watched their kiddo lose their innocence too early, or someone going through cancer or whatever. Like, there's all this burden and weight that makes our feet freaking hurt,
yeah,
um, you know, uh, conceptually or whatever.
yeah,
And so as I'm like taking these steps, I'm like, okay, I have 3 options. I can stop. I can stop moving. What happens? Okay, people are hours away. Maybe I fall asleep. Maybe
yeah,
other people, but like, I'm not getting out of here unless somebody comes and rescues me, and that doesn't make sense. I could keep moving, and I could bitch and complain about my feet and be so angry at the thing. Or I could change my perspective of the pain and think of it as a gift.
yeah,
And so every step from that point, I'm like, okay, this is a gift. This is a gift. And like, as I'm listening to these recordings over and over again, and then taking the step over and over again, the very thing I was doing was inflicting the pain.
Yeah.
But yet I could change, I could make the decision in that very moment to think about how I thought about the pain. And it just came crystal clear, like, oh, every decision, every moment in life, I get to choose to be the man that I want to be, that I feel called to be, that I feel compelled to be. And I get to choose how I perceive this very moment. I could look at it from the most beautiful, optimistic, or I could look at it from the most grave, disappointing, harmful situation, like you name it. Both are important. And so, dude, my pace started picking up, like my heart rate started dropping, and I just like started cruising, man. And like
Crazy.
crazy, truly crazy. Like, and the gal that I was running with, Simone, we like got to the aid station, and she has like a Brazilian accent, and I'm gonna butcher it. She's like, "What happened to you?" She's like, "You were trying to kill me." she's like, she's like, she's like, "You're a different person now," and like that she could like
She
feel that
saw
or
it.
recognize that or whatever. It just was like this really powerful moment that we carry these emotions around with us, man. We carry shame, we carry disappointment, we carry
Yeah.
stories and all this stuff, and it serves nothing for the future, for our future self. It only slows us down getting to that fuller version of ourselves. And like I'd never felt that tangible of an experience of where it's just like do, let's go, man. And so my demons showed up in a way of like in pain in my feet, but realizing that those demons are just like they're just trying to get to the next best thing to like stop me from making progress, into
Yeah.
a fuller version of myself.
Man, you have such a deep sense of purpose, man, and that story, the story I think is going to encourage people to hear that. Um, I think often we don't feel like it's a choice,
Hmm.
right? Like feelings don't feel like a choice. And to some degree, it's true. You can't really directly control your feelings. Um, but you do get to choose. What would you say you do get to choose? You get to choose if you keep moving. You get to choose your relationship with your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it goes back to maybe how we started, like the intentionality of the role. Like, I do have a role and a responsibility to my feelings. If I constantly dismiss them and shove
Mhm.
them, push them back, they're only going to rear their head later on. I wasn't a good steward of those feelings and those emotions and help them to coalesce in some way, shape, or form. Like, I'm not courageous and with a lack of fear. Like, they bring each other, purpose and intention. And so, I think the more we can steward our feelings to
Yeah.
hopefully be full ourselves and, be present for others is, kind of the name of the game.
Stewarding our feelings. I like that. I like that word, steward. Uh, I think that's right on. We're about 6 minutes over. I'm not making you late for anything, am I?
No, you're not.
Okay. All right. Good. Because it was too good. I couldn't interrupt you while you were saying all that. it wasn't.
Sorry for going long.
It was no. It was not going to happen because I was over there just taking it in, man, soaking it in. Like you experienced something of a miracle out there.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
so is there anything you found a treasure, you took a treasure out with you, right? You once again found a treasure in that place. um, what does life look like post Arizona Monster 300? What's the same, what's different?
Um, yeah, I think, you know, it's like full circle. Like I don't think a ton's different.
Yeah.
It, it's like the desert out there is the same. There's the same trail. There's the same cactus. So I think environmentally everything's the same, but like how I'm walking through that trail is a little bit different.
Yes.
And so I feel a little bit lighter, although I carry the same stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I hopefully am, the biggest validator of this would be my wife saying like, am I more present? Am I holding her with more fire? Do I like you observably cherish the hugs and kisses from my kids, um, more. So yeah, I think presence is the changing. And again, I'm not expecting like an epiphany or a
Right.
complete arrival, but it's like, am I a couple percentage points more present?
Yeah.
And I'll take that all day long.
Yep. I hear that. And that's actually probably useful for people because I think we're often looking for like, what's that thing I'm going to do that's going to radically change my life and get rid of all my issues? And it's like, no, that's not what we get. What we
Nah.
get is we get to keep walking
Yeah.
and we get to be a little stronger, I think. And for you, I think strength looks like you get to cherish your life. Like you get to cherish the
Hmm.
gift of life a little more
Yeah.
than you did before.
On whatever you said just made me think of this, but we're on a one of those Friday calls. This is probably a week or two after the Arizona Monster, and my dad was one of my pit crew. He and my mom, and anyways, he was talking about some stuff like post Monster, like they got a lot of things going on in their life. They're caretakers for my grandparents on my mom's side, and anyways, he was just talking about some of the things that he was dealing with, whatever it may be, emotionally, mentally, frustration. And he's like, man, I'm just kind of annoyed that I'm like dealing with this crap at 69 years old. And I told him, I'm like, I don't like, I don't know why you think you shouldn't be dealing with them. Like, because my expectation is I'm going to be dealing with the same things that you're dealing at 69 as well. But hopefully, I just have a few more tools and that I'm growing. And so I think we get this like picture that like things aren't going to be hard. And I don't want to live in a world that there's not hard stuff. I just want to be equipped to deal with the hard when it shows up so that I don't get knocked off my rocker. So if I go into some of these things, if anything, they've taught me like nothing goes according to plan.
Right.
And the moment that you think it is, that's when you have this fallacy that's going to knock you upside down. And so my expectation is all the shit that I'm dealing with right now, I'm going to be dealing for the next 40, 50 years. But hopefully I'm just a little bit better before, I croak.
Yeah, dude, I love it, man, because I do think that is very counterintuitive to the way most people think. Most people think optimistically, I hope things are going to get easier, right? We picture and we fantasize about life getting better, about circumstances getting better,
Yeah.
right? And more favorable. And you're saying, no, I think I just want to be stronger,
Yeah.
right? Like I want to grow and I'm going to get the same result through growth,
Yeah.
which doesn't depend on if my circumstances change or not.
Yeah. I have not had evidence that my life is going to get easier.
Yeah.
I don't have any evidence that I've observed somebody else's life getting easier.
Yeah.
And so if I negate the evidence that is presented to me and thinking that things are going to get easier, like that seems counterintuitive to like I just can't process
Yeah.
it. And so my only option is change how I interact with all those circumstances around me.
Dude, it's a better strategy, right? Like that's just to take a hold of.
I don't know if it's better. It's just the one that I'm rocking for right now.
But you do know it's better. You do know it's a better strategy, right? Like you can't control the environment,
Yeah.
right? But I do actually have some control over my internal realm. Um, and I can have certain perspectives that are going to be more conducive to growth.
Yeah. That is true. I would agree with that statement.
Yeah. Bro, I could talk to you for another 2 hours, but we're already going long.
Likewise, man. Thanks for asking such great questions, and yeah, I appreciate you sharing your superpower with me with making it safe and easy to talk to and pulling things out of people.
Yeah, dude. I love it, man. I think that there's some incredible nuggets to be learned that I personally can learn from this time with you. Um, and I just want to say, man, I believe in you. I believe in the kind of man that you are. I believe in the mission that you have. I get the chance because of what I do. I get the chance to really dig in with a lot of people and understand what makes a lot of people tick. I probably have a lot more people like who are willing to let me hold their hearts.
Hmm.
And what that gives me often at the end of it is like just such confidence in what you were created to do. I have great confidence in what you were created to do.
I appreciate
and
that.
and not only that, but I see that you're living a life that's aligned with what you were created to do.
Hmm.
So it's like, yeah, I bet on you.
I appreciate that, man. Big time.
Because that is not everyone, but that is definitely what I see in you, man. So I wish you the best, and thank you for spending the time with us today. And then for anybody who made it this far, thanks for joining us for another episode of the Superpower Quest. And then this may publish a couple other places. We'll see you. We'll see you next time.
All right.
Take it
Thanks.
easy, Joshua.
Thank you.